Join the legion of subscribers, because in the grim darkness of the far future, only those who hit the bell icon get updates, or face the wrath of the Inquisition. In the vast tapestry of the Imperium's history, few events have left as deep and lasting a scar as the fall of Cadia. This cataclysmic moment, set against the backdrop of the 13th Black Crusade, marked a turning point in the eternal war between the forces of the Imperium and the relentless tide of chaos. Cadia, a fortress world of unparalleled strategic importance, stood for millennia as the bulwark against the horrors that lurked within the Eye of Terror. Its position, guarding the only stable route from this roiling realm of chaos into the material universe, earned it the moniker the Gate of Cadia. The planet's importance was not just strategic, but symbolic, a testament to humanity's defiance in the face of annihilation. The Cadian system, with its network of space stations, minefields, and fleet anchorages, was more than just a planet. It was the linchpin of the Imperium's defense against chaos incursions. The Cadian pylons, ancient structures of mysterious origin that dotted the planet's surface, played a crucial role in stabilizing the warp around the Eye of Terror, containing the malevolent energies that sought to spill forth. For 10,000 years, Cadia stood firm. Its people, molded by generations of warfare, embodied the very spirit of imperial resistance. The saying, "Cadia stands," was more than a motto. It was a declaration of unwavering resolve in the face of unimaginable horrors. The Cadian shock troops, renowned across the galaxy for their discipline and valor, were the physical manifestation of this unyielding spirit. But even the mightiest fortresses can fall. The 13th Black Crusade, led by Abaddon the Despoiler, War Master of Chaos, would prove to be the ultimate test of Cadia's defenses. This was not merely another invasion. It was the culmination of a plan set in motion millennia ago, a scheme of such intricacy and malevolence that its full scope was beyond comprehension. As the forces of chaos gathered, the Imperium rallied to Cadia's defense. Fleet elements from across the segmentum converged on the system, while on the ground, Imperial Guard regiments and Space Marine chapters prepared for the onslaught. The scale of the conflict was staggering, with millions of souls committed to the defense of this single vital world. The initial stages of the invasion were marked by furious void battles and planetary assaults. Chaos forces struck at multiple points simultaneously, testing Cadia's defenses and probing for weaknesses. The defenders, drawing upon centuries of experience and fortification, met each thrust with stubborn resistance. For a time, it seemed that Cadia might once again weather the storm. But Abaddon's plan was more insidious than a mere frontal assault. As the battle raged, dark rituals were enacted across the sector, weakening the fabric of reality. The Cadian pylons, those ancient bulwarks against the warp, began to falter under the strain. The very forces they had held at bay for millennia now threatened to overwhelm them. In the midst of this apocalyptic struggle, heroes emerged on both sides. Imperial defenders performed acts of valor that would be remembered for generations, while the champions of chaos unleashed powers that defied mortal comprehension. The fate of not just Cadia, but potentially the entire Imperium, hung in the balance. As the conflict reached its zenith, the true nature of Abaddon's plan became apparent. The Despoiler's ultimate goal was not merely to conquer Cadia, but to destroy it utterly, to remove this impediment to chaos once and for all. The method of this destruction would shake the very foundations of the Imperium and herald a new age of darkness. The fall of Cadia was more than the loss of a strategically important world. It represented a fundamental shift in the balance of power in the galaxy. The consequences of this event would ripple across the Imperium, altering the course of the eternal war against chaos and ushering in an era of unprecedented peril and opportunity. In the annals of Imperial history, the fall of Cadia stands as a moment of profound tragedy and indomitable spirit. It is a testament to the cost of defiance against the ruinous powers and a stark reminder of the fragility of even the mightiest bastions. As we delve into the details of this momentous event, we bear witness to the end of an era and the birth of a new, darker age for humanity. The defenders of Cadia, stalwart in their resolve, stood as the first line against the encroaching darkness. Led by Lord Castellan Ursarkar E. Creed, the Cadian military embodied centuries of martial tradition and strategic acumen. Creed's tactical brilliance and unwavering determination made him a rallying point for Imperial forces, his name synonymous with Cadia's indomitable spirit. Alongside Creed stood the Astra Militarum regiments, chief among them the renowned Cadian shock troops. These soldiers, born and bred for war, represented the finest of Imperial Guard training and equipment. Their discipline in the face of overwhelming odds would prove crucial in the coming conflict. The Space Marines, humanity's finest warriors, answered Cadia's call in force. Chapters from across the Imperium dispatched contingents, with the Dark Angels and Space Wolves playing particularly prominent roles. These transhuman warriors brought not only their superhuman combat abilities, but also their irreplaceable experience in battling the forces of chaos. The Adeptus Mechanicus, guardians of humanity's technological knowledge, contributed significantly to Cadia's defense. Their Skitarii legions and towering war machines bolstered the planet's military might, while their tech priests worked tirelessly to maintain the ancient Cadian pylons, those mysterious structures vital to holding back the tides of the warp. Inquisitorial presence on Cadia was strong, with agents from various ordos coordinating efforts to root out potential corruption and gather crucial intelligence. The Sisters of Battle, militant arm of the Ecclesiarchy, lent their faith-fueled fervor to the planet's protection, their conviction a beacon of hope in dark times. Naval elements played a critical role, with battle fleets from neighboring sectors converging to reinforce the Cadian Gate. Admiral Quarren commanded the Cadian sector fleet, his vessels forming a vital outer defense line against the incoming Chaos Armada. On the side of Chaos, Abaddon the Despoiler stood as the architect of Cadia's doom. The War Master of Chaos, heir to Horus's legacy, had spent millennia planning this moment. His tactical acumen, honed over countless campaigns, was matched only by his ruthless determination to see the Imperium burn. The traitor legions, those Space Marines who turned from the Emperor's light during the Horus heresy, formed the elite core of Abaddon's forces. The Black Legion, Abaddon's own warband, led the charge, supported by elements from other traitor legions such as the Death Guard and Emperor's Children. Chaos Space Marines were not the only transhuman threats. The Dark Mechanicum, twisted mirrors of their loyal counterparts, brought forth abominable war machines that defied the laws of physics and sanity alike. Legions of chaos cultists and traitor guard regiments swelled the ranks of the invading force. These mortal followers of the dark gods, driven by promises of power or the desperation of the damned, provided the numerical bulk of Abaddon's army. Demonic entities played a crucial role in the Despoiler's plans. Greater demons and demon princes led vast hosts of lesser warp spawn, their very presence weakening the barriers between real space and the immaterium. The Chaos Fleet, a twisted amalgamation of ancient warships and warp-born monstrosities, bore down on the Cadian system. At its heart was the Vengeful Spirit, Abaddon's flagship, and the vessel from which Horus himself once challenged the Emperor. Beyond the mortal and demonic participants, the Chaos Gods themselves took an active interest in the conflict. Their influence manifested in myriad ways, from empowering their champions to manipulating the very fabric of reality around Cadia. The Necrons, ancient enemies of the Warp, played an unexpected role. The Necron Lord Trazyn the Infinite, driven by inscrutable motives, involved himself in the conflict, his actions adding an element of unpredictability to an already chaotic situation. As these forces converged on Cadia, the stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy. The fate of the Imperium hung in the balance, with each faction bringing its full might to bear in a struggle that would echo through the millennia. The seeds of Cadia's fall were sown long before Abaddon's forces darkened the skies above the fortress world. For millennia, the Despoiler had launched his black crusades against the Imperium, each incursion a calculated step in a grand design whose true scope remained hidden from Imperial strategists. The Cadian Gate's strategic importance stemmed from its unique position as the only stable route out of the Eye of Terror. This cosmic anomaly, a tear in reality created by the birth of Slaanesh, had long served as a staging ground for chaos incursions. The Cadian pylons, ancient structures of unknown origin, played a crucial role in containing the warp energies that threatened to spill forth. Over the centuries, Abaddon's forces had systematically destroyed or corrupted many similar devices across the galaxy. This long-term strategy gradually weakened the barriers between real space and the warp, setting the stage for a final devastating assault on Cadia itself. The 12th Black Crusade, also known as the Gothic War, had seen Abaddon gain possession of the Blackstone fortresses, ancient weapons of immense power. These would prove instrumental in his plans for Cadia, though their true purpose remained a closely guarded secret until the final hours of the conflict. In the years leading up to the 13th Black Crusade, the Imperium faced mounting challenges on multiple fronts. The Tyranid hive fleets continued their relentless advance, while the Necrons awakened in ever greater numbers. These threats stretched Imperial resources thin, leaving the defenses of even crucial worlds like Cadia less robust than ideal. Prophetic visions and portents of doom proliferated across the galaxy. Astropaths reported disturbing fluctuations in the warp, while sanctioned psychers experienced nightmares of a galaxy torn asunder. The Emperor's Tarot, consulted by inquisitors and imperial leaders, consistently turned up cards of war, destruction, and cosmic upheaval. On Cadia itself, generations of constant warfare had forged a population singularly devoted to martial prowess. Every Cadian was a soldier, trained from birth to defend their world against the horrors that lurked beyond the gate. This martial culture would prove both a blessing and a curse, as it prepared the population for war but left them ill-equipped for any other outcome. The Adeptus Mechanicus had long studied the Cadian pylons, attempting to unravel their mysteries. In the decades before the 13th Black Crusade, they noted increasingly erratic energy patterns emanating from these structures. Some tech priests theorized that the pylons were reacting to some unseen threat, their ancient systems straining against an imminent incursion. Political strife within the Imperium complicated preparations for the coming storm. The High Lords of Terra, ever focused on maintaining their power, often prioritized political maneuvering over strategic necessity. This infighting led to delays in reinforcing Cadia's defenses and coordinating a cohesive response to the growing chaos threat. The Inquisition, aware of the gathering darkness, increased its presence in the Cadian sector. Agents from various ordos worked to root out potential chaos cults and gather intelligence on enemy movements. Their efforts, while valuable, also sowed seeds of paranoia and distrust among the population and military leadership. Abaddon's preparations were equally thorough. He gathered his forces in the Eye of Terror, binding disparate chaos warbands to his cause through a combination of charisma, intimidation, and dark pacts. The Despoiler also set in motion numerous plots and diversions across the galaxy designed to draw Imperial attention away from his true target. As the 13th Black Crusade loomed, a sense of fatalism began to permeate the Cadian population. While their resolve remained unshaken, many couldn't shake the feeling that this conflict would be different from those that had come before. Rumors spread of ancient prophecies foretelling Cadia's fall, though such talk was quickly suppressed by commissars as defeatism. The ecclesiarchy played its part in preparing for the coming battle, whipping the faithful into a fervor with promises of martyrdom and eternal glory. Preachers spoke of a final confrontation between the Emperor's light and the darkness of chaos, urging every citizen to stand firm in the face of the gathering storm. In the final months before the invasion, Imperial naval patrols reported increased Chaos fleet activity near the Cadian Gate. Abaddon's forces probed the defenses, testing for weaknesses and drawing out Imperial fleet elements. These skirmishes served as both reconnaissance and a means of sowing confusion about the true scale and timing of the coming assault. As the hour of reckoning approached, Lord Castellan Creed worked tirelessly to coordinate Cadia's defenses. He knew that the coming battle would test the fortress world like never before, and he was determined to ensure that Cadia would stand, no matter the cost. Little did he know that Abaddon's plans went far beyond mere conquest, aiming instead at the utter annihilation of the planet itself. The 13th Black Crusade began with a series of precision strikes across the Cadian sector. Chaos forces emerged from the Eye of Terror in unprecedented numbers, overwhelming outlying defense stations and colonies. Imperial Navy elements scrambled to respond, engaging the Chaos fleet in a series of brutal void battles. On Cadia itself, the initial assault came from within. Sleeper cells of Chaos cultists, long dormant, rose up in coordinated attacks on key military installations. Lord Castellan Creed's forces moved swiftly to crush these uprisings, but the damage was done. Vital systems were sabotaged, and confusion reigned in the crucial early hours of the invasion. As Chaos ships breached the outer defenses, drop pods and landing craft darkened Cadia's skies. Traitor Astartes led the charge, establishing beachheads from which larger forces could deploy. The Cadian shock troops met them with disciplined volleys of laser gun fire, their training and resolve tested to the utmost. Abaddon's strategy became clear as multiple fronts opened simultaneously. While his main force hammered at Cadia's primary fortifications, secondary attacks struck at strategic locations across the planet. Chaos Space Marines targeted the pylons, seeking to disrupt the ancient structure's stabilizing influence on the local warp. The space above Cadia became a graveyard of ships as the Imperial Navy clashed with the Chaos Armada. Admiral Quarren's tactics kept the enemy at bay initially, but the sheer number of Chaos vessels began to tell. The vengeful spirit, Abaddon's flagship, moved inexorably towards the planet, its presence a dark promise of doom. On the ground, the fighting intensified. Cadian regiments held the line against waves of cultists and demonic entities, their positions bolstered by Space Marine strike forces. The Dark Angels and Space Wolves played crucial roles, their warriors stemming the tide at critical junctures. Tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus struggled to maintain the pylons as Chaos forces pressed their attack. The ancient structures pulsed with erratic energies, their systems strained by the increasing warp turbulence. Skitarii legions formed a perimeter around key pylons, holding off Chaos attacks with stubborn determination. As the battle raged, Psykers on both sides felt the veil between realities growing thinner. Sanctioned Imperial Psykers fought to maintain their sanity amidst the rising tide of warp energy, while their Chaos counterparts reveled in the growing madness, channeling it into devastating attacks. Abaddon himself led an assault on Kasr Kraf, Cadia's most formidable fortress city. The Despoiler's presence on the battlefield inspired fanatical devotion in his followers and struck terror into the hearts of the defenders. Even seasoned Cadian veterans faltered before the War Master's relentless advance. Imperial reinforcements arrived piecemeal, their efforts to reach Cadia hindered by warp storms and harrying attacks from Chaos fleet elements. Saint Celestine, the living saint, materialized on the battlefield in a blaze of holy light, her arrival reinvigorating the beleaguered defenders. The Necron Lord Trazyn the Infinite made his unexpected entrance, unleashing legions of awakened Necron warriors against both Chaos and Imperial forces. His inscrutable agenda added another layer of complexity to the already chaotic conflict. As the battle reached its fever pitch, Abaddon unveiled the true purpose of the Blackstone fortresses. These ancient weapons, positioned with utmost care, began to channel unimaginable energies towards Cadia. The planet's surface quaked as tectonic plates shifted under the strain. Belisarius Cawl, Archmagos of the Adeptus Mechanicus, arrived with critical intelligence about the nature of the pylons. His insights offered a glimmer of hope, the possibility of using the ancient structures to repel the Chaos invasion. A desperate race began as Imperial forces fought to enact Call's plan while holding off the enemy. In orbit, the battle took a decisive turn as Chaos forces managed to destroy a significant portion of the Imperial fleet. With Void superiority achieved, Abaddon's ships began systematically bombarding Cadia's surface, further straining its already buckling defenses. On the ground, Imperial forces found themselves pushed back into ever-shrinking pockets of resistance. The Cadian Eighth, the Lord Castellan's own, held firm against impossible odds, their stand at the Elysian Fields becoming the stuff of legend. As Cadia's situation grew increasingly dire, difficult decisions had to be made. Many Imperial commanders advocated for evacuation, seeing the battle as lost. Others, including Creed himself, insisted on fighting to the last, determined that Cadia would not fall while a single defender still drew breath. The warp itself seemed to bleed into reality as the conflict reached its zenith. Demon Primarchs manifested on the battlefield, their presence warping the very laws of physics. Imperial forces found themselves fighting not just against enemies, but against the twisting fabric of reality itself. In the war's final hours, it became clear that Cadia's fate hung by a thread. The planet's defenders, though battered and broken, refused to yield. As Abaddon's endgame approached, the galaxy watched with bated breath, knowing that the outcome of this battle would shape the future of the Imperium itself. The pivotal moment in the fall of Cadia came with the destruction of the planet itself. As Imperial forces rallied around Belisarius Call's plan to activate the Cadian pylons, Abaddon unleashed his final devastating gambit. The Blackstone Fortress, Will of Eternity, guided by the hand of the Despoiler, plummeted towards Cadia's surface in a last, spiteful act of destruction. This massive impact shattered the planet's crust, destabilizing its core and setting off a chain reaction of tectonic events. The ground split open, swallowing entire regiments and toppling mighty fortresses. Magma erupted from newly formed fissures, turning vast swaths of the battlefield into lakes of fire. In orbit, Imperial and Chaos fleets alike reeled from the shockwave of the impact. Ships were tossed about like leaves in a storm, their crews struggling to maintain control amidst the chaos. The void itself seemed to ripple with the force of the blow, as if reality was struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what had just occurred. On the surface, the surviving defenders faced a new, implacable enemy, the planet itself. As Cadia began to tear itself apart, the battle shifted from one of conquest to one of desperate survival. Imperial Guard regiments found themselves fighting not just against Chaos forces, but against collapsing structures and yawning chasms that threatened to devour them whole. The destruction of Cadia had far-reaching consequences beyond the physical. The network of pylons, which had for millennia held back the tides of the warp, began to fail catastrophically. As these ancient structures toppled one by one, the veil between real space and the immaterium grew ever thinner. Psychers across the planet screamed in agony as warp energies flooded into reality. Many were driven mad by the influx, their minds unable to cope with the sudden, overwhelming presence of chaos. Others found their powers amplified to dangerous levels, unleashing uncontrolled psychic phenomena that further added to the pandemonium. In this moment of ultimate crisis, individual acts of heroism stood out against the backdrop of planetary annihilation. Space Marine chaplains rallied their brothers with impassioned speeches, even as the ground crumbled beneath their feet. Sister of Battle squads formed living shields around civilians, sacrificing themselves to give others a chance at evacuation. Lord Castellan Creed, refusing to abandon his post even in the face of certain doom, coordinated what remained of Cadia's defenses from a command bunker deep beneath Khazar Kraf. His tactical genius shone through one last time as he organized a fighting retreat, buying precious time for evacuation efforts. The living Saint Celestine soared above the devastation, her radiance a beacon of hope in the darkness. She led daring rescue missions, plucking survivors from the jaws of death and rallying broken units for one last stand against the encroaching forces of chaos. Abaddon, witnessing the fruition of his millennia-long plan, took to the field himself. The despoiler cut a swath through the Imperial lines, his every step bringing him closer to total victory. It was in this moment, with defeat seemingly assured, that the unexpected occurred. Trazyn the Infinite, the enigmatic Necron Lord, activated a device of his own design. In a blinding flash, entire swaths of the battlefield were transmuted into energy and stored within Trazyn's Tesseract labyrinths. Among those taken were key Imperial leaders and units, preserved for reasons known only to the inscrutable Necron. As Cadia's death throes intensified, a desperate evacuation began. The skies filled with dropships and transports as Imperial forces attempted to flee the doomed world. Many of these craft were shot down by Chaos fighters or consumed by the planet's convulsions, but some managed to break through, carrying with them the last remnants of Cadia's defenders. In orbit, Imperial Navy captains made the ultimate sacrifice, positioning their vessels to shield the evacuation transports from enemy fire. These brave souls went to their deaths, knowing that their actions might allow a fragment of Cadia to survive. The final hours of Cadia were marked by a surreal, apocalyptic atmosphere. As the planet tore itself apart, reality began to warp and twist. Survivors reported impossible sights, buildings floating in midair, time flowing backwards in localized pockets, and glimpses of other worlds bleeding through the thinning veil of reality. In the end, Cadia's destruction was total. The planet, once the stalwart guardian of the Imperium's borders, broke apart into asteroid-sized fragments. The Cadian Gate, for millennia, the only stable route out of the Eye of Terror, was no more. As the last Imperial ships fled the Cadian system, they bore witness to an even more terrifying sight. The Eye of Terror, no longer held in check by the Cadian pylons, began to expand. A great rift tore across the galaxy, from the Eye to the Hadex anomaly in the eastern fringe. The Cicatrix Maledictum, the Great Rift, was born. The fall of Cadia marked not just the loss of a strategically vital world, but the beginning of a new, darker era for the Imperium of Man. As news of Cadia's destruction spread, it sent shockwaves of despair and disbelief throughout Imperial space. The unthinkable had happened, the gate had fallen, and the forces of chaos now had an open path into the heart of the Imperium. The destruction of Cadia sent shockwaves across the Imperium, both literal and metaphorical. The immediate aftermath saw the birth of the Great Rift, a vast tear in reality that split the galaxy in two. This Cicatrix Maledictum stretched from the Eye of Terror to the Hadex anomaly, creating a divide that would come to be known as the Imperium Nihilis. Countless worlds found themselves cut off from Terra's light, plunged into darkness as warp storms raged across vast swaths of space. Astropathic communications became unreliable at best, impossible at worst. Supply lines were severed, leaving entire sectors isolated and vulnerable. The fall of the Cadian Gate opened a floodgate for chaos incursions. War bands and demonic hosts poured forth from the expanded Eye of Terror, striking at Imperial worlds with unprecedented ferocity. Planetary governors and sector lords scrambled to shore up their defenses, often finding themselves woefully unprepared for the scale of the onslaught. Abaddon's victory galvanized the forces of chaos. Many who had previously hesitated to openly defy the Imperium now flocked to the despoiler's banner. Chaos cults multiplied exponentially, emboldened by the apparent weakness of Imperial authority. The Adeptus Ministorum faced a crisis of faith. The loss of Cadia, long held as an unassailable bastion, shook the bedrock of Imperial doctrine. Preachers struggled to explain how the Emperor could allow such a catastrophe, leading to schisms and heresies across countless worlds. Inquisitorial purges intensified as the Holy Ordo sought to root out any hint of corruption or defeatism. Entire populations were subjected to harsh scrutiny, with even the slightest suspicion of chaos taint leading to drastic measures. The Adeptus Mechanicus reeled from the loss of crucial forge worlds and research facilities. The destruction of the Cadian pylons represented an incalculable loss of archaeotech knowledge. Tech priests pored over what data they could salvage, desperate to uncover the secrets of these ancient devices before it was too late. Military reorganization became a necessity as the Imperium grappled with its new reality. The Astra Militarum found many of its most elite regiments shattered, the cream of the Imperial Guard lost with Cadia. Efforts to rebuild and retrain intensified, drawing upon reserves and hastening recruitment efforts. Space Marine chapters faced difficult decisions. Many had committed significant forces to Cadia's defense, suffering grievous losses. The need to protect their home worlds clashed with the imperative to strike back at chaos, leading to agonizing choices for chapter masters across the Imperium. The Imperial Navy, already stretched thin, now faced the monumental task of patrolling the borders of the Great Rift. Warp travel became exponentially more dangerous, requiring new strategies and technologies to navigate the treacherous new realities of the galaxy. Refugee crises erupted as populations fled worlds in the path of chaos advances. Overcrowded hive worlds struggled to accommodate the influx, leading to civil unrest and logistical nightmares for planetary authorities. The Adeptus Administratum, backbone of imperial bureaucracy, found itself paralyzed in many regions. The loss of records, personnel, and entire data repositories on Cadia and surrounding systems created administrative chaos that would take decades to fully resolve. Recruitment for the Astra Militarum saw a significant shift. The loss of Cadia meant the disappearance of one of the Imperium's prime sources of elite soldiers. Other worlds were forced to increase their tithes, leading to social and economic strains as more and more of the population was funneled into military service. The ecclesiarchy leveraged the tragedy to fuel a new wave of religious fervor. Preachers spoke of martyrdom and sacrifice, urging the faithful to redouble their devotion in the face of adversity. Calls for holy crusades to reclaim lost territories grew louder, drawing countless pilgrims and zealots to take up arms. Chaos Space Marine war bands, emboldened by Abaddon's victory, launched their own campaigns of conquest. Long-standing rivalries were set aside as the traitor legions united in purpose, seeing the Imperium's moment of weakness as their opportunity to finally enact vengeance for the Horus heresy. The Ordo Malleus of the Inquisition found its resources strained to breaking point. With demonic incursions becoming commonplace, even on worlds previously thought secure, Inquisitors and their allies worked tirelessly to stem the tide of chaos corruption. Forge Worlds increased production of war material to unprecedented levels, entire planets given over to the creation of weapons and vehicles. The demand for resources to fuel this industrial explosion led to increased exploitation of frontier worlds, often at great cost to local populations and environments. As the Imperium reeled from Cadia's fall, other factions sought to capitalize on the upheaval. Xenos races launched their own offensives, sensing the Imperium's vulnerability. Necron dynasties awakened in greater numbers, Orc-Wags gathered strength, and the Tyrannid hive fleets pressed their advance with renewed vigor. The birth of the Great Rift also heralded psychic awakening across the galaxy. Latent psychers manifested in greater numbers, creating new challenges and opportunities for the Imperium. The black ships of the Adeptus Astra Telepathica worked overtime to gather this burgeoning population of psychically gifted individuals. In the depths of this darkness, however, a glimmer of hope emerged. The re-emergence of Roboute Guilliman, Primarch of the Ultramarines, offered the Imperium a rallying point in its darkest hour. His return would set in motion a chain of events that would come to be known as the Indomitus Crusade, a desperate bid to hold the Imperium together in the face of unprecedented threats. The fall of Cadia witnessed the deployment of formidable technologies and tactics from both Imperial and Chaos forces. The Cadian pylons, ancient structures of unknown origin, played a pivotal role in the conflict. These massive monoliths, had long acted as a bulwark against the warp, their energy fields containing the Eye of Terror's malevolent influence. Belisarius Cawl, Archmagos Dominus of the Adeptus Mechanicus, brought crucial insights into the pylon's workings. His research suggested that these devices could be activated to not only contain, but potentially push back the forces of chaos. This led to a desperate race to harness the pylon's power before Abaddon could complete his conquest. The Blackstone fortresses, wielded by Abaddon, represented the pinnacle of ancient technology. These star forts, capable of unleashing devastating energy beams, were instrumental in breaking Cadia's orbital defenses. The sacrifice of the Will of Eternity as a planet-killing projectile demonstrated the despoiler's willingness to expend even the most valuable assets for victory. Void warfare saw the employment of cutting-edge Imperial Navy tactics. Battlefleet Cadia utilized complex formation strategies designed to maximize overlapping fields of fire while minimizing exposure to enemy broadsides. Nova cannon barrages and torpedo spreads created corridors of destruction through which smaller, faster craft could strike at the heart of the Chaos fleet. Chaos forces countered with warp-infused technologies that defied conventional physics. Demon engines, fusion of machine and warp entity, rampaged across Cadian battlefields. These abominations proved highly resistant to standard weaponry, requiring concentrated fire from heavy weapons to bring down. The Adeptus Mechanicus deployed cohorts of Castellan robots, their ancient machine spirits awakened to full battle fury. These implacable automata formed unyielding anvils against which the Chaos forces broke themselves. Skitarii legions supported these robotic phalanxes, their radium weaponry leaving swaths of irradiated no-man's land in their wake. Traitor Titan legions brought their god machines to bear, their twisted forms a mockery of their loyal counterparts. Warp-mutated weapon systems unleashed hellish barrages that could level entire fortress complexes in seconds. Imperial Titans rose to meet this threat, resulting in titanic duels that reshaped Cadia's landscape. The Dark Mechanicum unveiled nightmarish creations that blurred the line between technology and sorcery. Flesh metal hybrids and chittering swarms of scrap code-infected machines spread like viruses through Imperial defensive networks, turning the Defenders' own systems against them. Cadian forces showcased their legendary tactical flexibility. Years of repelling chaos incursions had honed their abilities to rapidly redeploy and adapt to ever-changing battlefield conditions. Overlapping fields of fire from entrenched heavy weapon teams created killing grounds that exacted a heavy toll on the invaders. Abaddon's forces employed insidious warp-based infiltration techniques. Chaos sorcerers opened short-lived portals behind enemy lines, allowing strike teams to materialize in the heart of Imperial strongholds. This constant threat of sudden assault forced the Defenders to divert precious resources to rear-area security. The Space Wolves introduced their unique brand of savage warfare to the conflict. Their Thunderwolf cavalry proved devastatingly effective in hit-and-run attacks against Chaos artillery positions. Stormfang gunships provided crucial air support, their Hellfrost destructors freezing entire squads of enemies in seconds. Necron technology, wielded by Trazyn the Infinite, added an unpredictable element to the battle. Tesseract labyrinths were used to capture and store entire sections of the battlefield, preserving them for reasons known only to the enigmatic Necron Lord. The Dark Angels brought their plasma weaponry to bear with terrible effect. Plasma talons mounted on Ravenwing bikes cut swaths through Chaos-armored units, while Deathwing Terminators teleported into the thick of enemy formations, their Stormbolters and Power Fists reaping a bloody tally. Chaos Space Marines countered Imperial teleportation tactics with warp-infused Auspex systems. These unholy devices could predict materialization coordinates, allowing traitor forces to set devastating ambushes for teleporting Loyalist units. The Officio Assassinorum deployed their agents in key strike missions. Vindicar assassins eliminated Chaos champions with pinpoint accuracy, while Calidus operatives sowed confusion by impersonating enemy leaders. Calexis assassins proved particularly effective against Chaos Psychers, their null auras negating warp-based powers. Warp storm manipulation became a crucial tactic for Chaos forces. Sorcerers worked in concert to direct these tempests, using them as both weapons and shields. Imperial Navy vessels found themselves having to navigate ever-shifting corridors of stable space, their navigators pushed to the limits of their abilities. The Sisters of Battle brought the cleansing flame to Cadia's defense. Their acts of faith manifested with increased potency in the spiritually charged atmosphere of the conflict. Exorcist tanks unleashed salvos of blessed warheads that proved especially effective against demon-infused targets. As the battle reached its climax, both sides resorted to increasingly desperate measures. Experimental weapons were unleashed with little regard for collateral damage. The very fabric of reality buckled under the strain of these otherworldly energies, creating zones where the laws of physics broke down entirely. In the end, even the most advanced technologies and tactics proved insufficient to save Cadia. The planet's destruction served as a stark reminder that in the grim darkness of the far future, there are some forces that cannot be overcome by martial prowess or technological might alone. Lord Castellan Ursarkar E. Creed stood as the embodiment of Cadian resilience. His tactical genius shone even in the darkest hours, orchestrating defenses that held against impossible odds. Creed's unwavering resolve inspired those around him, turning retreats into counterattacks and defeat into defiance. His final stand at Khazar Kraf became legend, though his ultimate fate remained a mystery, with some claiming Trazyn the Infinite preserved him at the last moment. Saint Celestine, the living saint, arrived as a beacon of hope amidst the chaos. Her radiant presence bolstered the faith of the defenders, her flaming sword cutting through swaths of demonic entities. Celestine's miraculous interventions saved countless lives, her actions on Cadia cementing her status as one of the Imperium's greatest heroes. Belisarius Cawl, Archmagos Dominus of the Adeptus Mechanicus, brought crucial knowledge about the Cadian pylons. His understanding of these ancient devices offered a glimmer of hope in turning the tide against chaos. Call's efforts to unlock the pylon's full potential showcased the Mechanicus's vital role in the Imperium's defense. Abaddon the Despoiler, War Master of Chaos, stood as the architect of Cadia's doom. His millennia-long plan came to fruition, demonstrating strategic acumen that rivaled even the greatest Imperial commanders. Abaddon's presence on the battlefield inspired fanatical devotion in his followers and terror in his enemies. Orvin Highfell, Cadian's sergeant, epitomized the bravery of the common soldier. His last stand against a Chaos Terminator squad, buying time for civilians to evacuate, became a rallying cry for Cadian survivors. Highfell's sacrifice highlighted the countless unnamed heroes who gave their lives in defense of their home. Jaren Kell, Creed's aide and Vox officer, stood by his lord to the very end. His booming voice carried orders across the battlefield, maintaining command cohesion even as communication networks failed. Kell's loyalty and efficiency under fire exemplified the best qualities of the Astra Militarum's officer corps. Magos Dominus Ud Udia Raskian led the Mechanicus forces in their desperate attempt to comprehend and activate the pylons. His cooperation with Belisarius Cawl, setting aside typical Mechanicus rivalries, showed the potential for unity in the face of extinction. Raskian's fate remained unknown, lost in the final cataclysm. Inquisitor Greyfax, known for her steely resolve and psychic abilities, played a crucial role in rooting out Chaos infiltrators during the battle. Her presence ensured that internal threats were dealt with swiftly, allowing the defenders to focus on the external enemy. Greyfax's escape from Cadia alongside Saint Celestine would have far-reaching consequences for the Imperium. Admiral Quarren commanded the Cadian naval forces with distinction, his fleets forming a bulwark against the Chaos Armada. His tactical acumen in void warfare bought precious time for ground forces and evacuation efforts. Quarren's last transmission, vowing to hold the line to the last ship, inspired naval officers across the sector. On the side of Chaos, the demon Primarch Mortarion made a terrifying appearance, his presence turning the tide of several key engagements. The Lord of Death brought with him pestilence and decay, his very presence corroding Imperial defenses and morale alike. Orcanthos, Chaos Lord and Chosen of Abaddon, led the initial assault on Khazur Kraf. His brutal efficiency in breaching the fortress's defenses earned him renown among the Chaos forces. Orcanthos's eventual defeat at the hands of Saint Celestine became a pivotal moment in the battle's early stages. Sven Bloodhowl, Wolf Lord of the Space Wolves, led his great company in a series of daring counterattacks. His ferocious assaults disrupted Chaos supply lines and relieved pressure on beleaguered Imperial positions. Bloodhowl's hit-and-run tactics proved crucial in buying time for evacuation efforts. Azrael, Supreme Grand Master of the Dark Angels, brought his chapter's secretive tactics and advanced weaponry to bear. His strategic deployment of Deathwing and Ravenwing elements turned the tide of several key engagements. Azrael's leadership ensured that the Dark Angels' contribution to Cadia's defense was significant, despite their habitual aloofness. Katarina Greyfax, Inquisitor of the Ordo Hereticus, found herself forging an uneasy alliance with Saint Celestine. Her initial skepticism of the living saint gave way to a grudging respect as they fought side by side. Greyfax's survival and subsequent actions would have a lasting impact on the Inquisition's approach to matters of faith. Trazyn the Infinite, the enigmatic Necron overlord, intervened in the conflict for his own inscrutable reasons. His collection of stasis-preserved warriors from various eras added an unpredictable element to the battle. Trazyn's actions, while nominally aiding the Imperium, served primarily to further his own mysterious agenda. Marshal Marius Amalric of the Black Templars led his brothers in a furious defense of the Martyr's Rampart. His unshakable faith and martial skill inspired even the hardened Cadians fighting alongside him. Amalric's final charge against a traitor Titan became a symbol of Space Marine valor. Janus Drake, High Cardinal of the Ecclesiarchy on Cadia, rallied the faithful with his impassioned sermons. His words kept hope alive even as the situation grew increasingly dire. Drake's decision to remain with his flock rather than evacuate showcased the devotion expected of Imperial clergy. Chaos. Lord Xorphus of the Black Legion led a devastating assault on the Elysian fields, his warp-forged axe reaping a terrible toll among the defenders. His duel with the Dark Angel's company master became the stuff of legend, both warriors falling to each other's blades. These individuals, heroes and villains alike, shaped the course of the conflict through their actions and decisions. Their legacies would echo through the Imperium and beyond, influencing events long after Cadia's fall. In the annals of Imperial history, their names would be remembered as key figures in one of the most pivotal battles of the 41st millennium. The fate of Lord Castellan Creed remains shrouded in mystery. Some accounts claim he was last seen directing the defense of Khazur Kraf, while others insist he led a final counterattack against Abaddon's forces. The most intriguing theory suggests Trazyn the Infinite captured Creed in a Tesseract labyrinth, preserving him for some unknown future purpose. Questions linger about the true nature of the Cadian pylons. While their role in containing the Eye of Terror was clear, the identity of their creators remains a subject of fierce debate among Imperial scholars. Some theorize they were constructed by the Old Ones, while others attribute them to a long-lost human civilization from the Dark Age of technology. The extent of Abaddon's foresight in planning Cadia's destruction is a matter of conjecture. Did he anticipate the exact manner of the planet's demise, or was the use of the Blackstone Fortress as a projectile a desperate final gambit? The answer could shed light on the true scope of the despoiler's strategic genius. The sudden appearance of Saint Celestine raises questions about the nature of living saints and their connection to the Emperor. Her ability to manifest at Cadia's darkest hour hints at a deeper, perhaps psychic link between these divine avatars and humanity's most desperate moments. The motivations behind Trazyn the Infinite's interventions remain opaque. Was his involvement purely driven by a collector's interest, or does he play a longer, more intricate game in the fate of the galaxy? The Necron Lord's actions on Cadia may have far-reaching consequences yet to be revealed. Belisarius Caul's knowledge of the pylon's workings suggests a connection to technologies or information from the Dark Age of technology. The extent of Caul's understanding and the source of his insights could have profound implications for the Adeptus Mechanicus and the Imperium at large. The true impact of the Cadian diaspora on the wider Imperium remains to be seen. Will the survivors' unbreakable spirit and martial prowess significantly influence the cultures of the worlds they now inhabit? The potential for a resurgence of Cadian-style militarism across multiple sectors could reshape Imperial military doctrine. Questions persist about the fate of the numerous artifacts and relics housed on Cadia. The planet's long history as a bulwark against chaos suggests it may have been home to weapons or technologies of immense power. The possibility that some of these fell into the hands of Chaos forces is a chilling prospect for Imperial authorities. The extent of Chaos infiltration in the years leading up to the 13th Black Crusade remains uncertain. Were there high-level Imperial officials secretly working to undermine Cadia's defenses from within? The paranoia stemming from this possibility continues to fuel inquisitorial investigations across the Imperium. The role of the Alpha Legion in the fall of Cadia is a subject of much speculation. Given their penchant for subtle manipulation and false flag operations, some theorize that the Legion played a crucial yet unseen role in the planet's downfall. The true extent of their involvement, if any, may never be known. The fate of the Cadian gene seed stocks raises concerns about the future of Space Marine chapters with ties to the planet. Were all the stocks destroyed, or did some escape the planet's destruction? The potential loss of this valuable resource could have long-term implications for the Adeptus Astartes. The psychological impact of Cadia's fall on the Imperium's collective psyche is difficult to quantify. How will the loss of this symbolic bulwark affect morale and faith in the long term? The potential for a crisis of faith across the Imperium looms large in the minds of ecclesiarchy leaders. The true nature of the weaponry used by Abaddon's forces, particularly the Blackstone fortresses, remains a subject of intense study. The origins and full capabilities of these ancient weapons could provide crucial insights into the technologies of past eras and potentially offer new avenues for Imperial defense. Questions persist about the fate of the numerous prisoners held in Cadia's infamous detention centers. Were they all killed in the planet's destruction, or did some manage to escape in the chaos? The potential release of hardened criminals and detained heretics into the wider Imperium is a troubling prospect for Imperial authorities. The long-term effects of the massive warp storm activity during the battle on Cadia's survivors remain unknown. Could exposure to such intense warp energies have unforeseen consequences on future generations? The potential for latent psychic abilities or chaos taint among the Cadian diaspora is a concern for the Ordo Hereticus. The true extent of Necron involvement in the battle, beyond Trajan's actions, is unclear. Were there other Necron forces observing or intervening in the conflict for their own inscrutable reasons? The possibility of wider Necron interest in the events surrounding Cadia's fall could have significant implications for future conflicts. The fate of the numerous Imperial saints and relics housed on Cadia is uncertain. Were they all destroyed, or did some survive to be scattered across the stars? The potential loss of these spiritual touchstones could have a profound impact on Imperial faith and morale. The fall of Cadia marked a pivotal moment in the history of the Imperium, its repercussions echoing across the galaxy for centuries to come. The destruction of this fortress world, long considered an unbreakable bastion against the forces of chaos, shattered the Imperium's sense of invulnerability and ushered in an era of unprecedented turmoil. The immediate aftermath saw the birth of the Great Rift, a vast tear in reality that bisected the galaxy. This cicatrix maledictum plunged countless worlds into darkness, cutting them off from the Emperor's light and the wider Imperium. The emergence of this cosmic wound fundamentally altered the balance of power, giving Chaos forces unprecedented access to real space and throwing Imperial logistics and communication into disarray. For the Adeptus Ministorum, Cadia's loss presented a crisis of faith. The fall of such a symbol of Imperial resistance challenged core tenets of Imperial doctrine, forcing ecclesiarchy leaders to adapt their teachings to maintain the faith of trillions. This theological upheaval led to the rise of new saints and martyrs, with the survivors of Cadia elevated to near-mythical status in Imperial propaganda. Militarily, the destruction of Cadia necessitated a complete restructuring of Imperial defenses. The Cadian Gate, once the linchpin of anti-chaos strategies, was no more, forcing Imperial tacticians to develop new approaches to contain the expanding threat. This shift in military doctrine would influence Imperial Guard training and equipment for generations to come. The Adeptus Astartes faced their own challenges in the wake of Cadia's fall. Many chapters had committed significant forces to the planet's defense, suffering grievous losses that would take centuries to rebuild. The event sparked intense debate among chapter masters about the role of Space Marines in large-scale conflicts versus their traditional focus on precision strikes. For the Adeptus Mechanicus, the loss of the Cadian pylons represented an incalculable setback. The destruction of these ancient artifacts, without the chance for thorough study, left tech priests scrambling to unlock their secrets from fragmentary data. This pursuit would drive Mechanicus research priorities for years to come, spurring expeditions to uncover similar technologies across the galaxy. The fall of Cadia had profound implications for Imperial psychers. The psychic shockwave of the planet's destruction, combined with the subsequent expansion of the Eye of Terror, led to an increase in psychic phenomena across the Imperium. This surge in warp activity strained the resources of the Black Ships and intensified the Imperium's hunt for psychic individuals. Politically, Cadia's destruction exposed deep-seated tensions within Imperial leadership. The failure to prevent such a catastrophe led to a crisis of confidence in the High Lords of Terra, paving the way for significant reforms in the Imperium's governing structure. This political upheaval would culminate in the return of Robut Guilliman and his assumption of the role of Lord Commander of the Imperium. The Inquisition found its resources stretched to breaking point in the aftermath. The sudden expansion of Chaos influence across the galaxy led to a surge in heretical activities, forcing Inquisitors to adopt increasingly drastic measures. This period saw a rise in radical philosophies within the Ordos as traditional methods proved insufficient to stem the tide of corruption. For the Chaos forces, Cadia's fall represented a vindication of Abaddon's long-term strategy. The success of the 13th Black Crusade cemented the Despoiler's position as the preeminent Chaos leader, unifying disparate warbands under his banner to a degree not seen since the Horus heresy. This newfound unity among Chaos forces posed an existential threat to the Imperium. The destruction of Cadia had far-reaching consequences for Imperial Navy operations. The loss of major fleet anchorages and the disruption of stable warp routes forced a complete overhaul of naval strategies. Adapting to the new reality of a galaxy split by the Great Rift became the Navy's primary challenge, requiring the development of new navigation techniques and the redeployment of fleets to counter emerging threats. In the wider galaxy, the fall of Cadia created power vacuums that other factions rushed to exploit. Xenos races, particularly the Necrons and Tyranids, took advantage of the Imperium's disarray to expand their own spheres of influence. This shift in the galactic balance of power would shape interstellar conflicts for centuries to come. The psychological impact on the Imperial population cannot be overstated. The loss of Cadia challenged the belief in the Imperium's invincibility, leading to a wave of existential dread across human-controlled space. This collective trauma manifested in various ways, from increased religious fervor to a rise in rebellions and heretical cults. Perhaps most significantly, the fall of Cadia served as a catalyst for change within the Imperium itself. The sheer scale of the disaster forced Imperial leaders to reevaluate long-standing policies and traditions. This period of introspection and reform, while painful, would ultimately strengthen the Imperium's resolve in the face of unprecedented challenges. As the dust settled on this monumental event, one thing became clear: the galaxy would never be the same. The fall of Cadia marked the end of an era and the beginning of a new age of darkness, where the very survival of humanity hung in the balance. Yet even in this darkest hour, the indomitable spirit of mankind burned bright, ready to face whatever horrors the universe might unleash.